Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I have a very exciting video for you today, one that I have been planning for going on 2 weeks now. Not every video gets 2 weeks of planning. This one did, so you are absolutely in for a treat. In point of fact, this video is directly inspired from real life experiences in my day-to-day job, and I think some of my best videos definitely come from real life experiences, which is to say that sometimes I just have fun playing with new technology, like my React Ink video, but this one is all about React, specifically hooks, but even more specifically about the useReducer hook. And the title of this video, which I already know the title, which is not always the case when I make these videos, is why I love useReducer. I have fallen head over heels with the React hook useReducer, and in this video I'm going to show you why I think it's an amazing hook and how you can leverage useReducer to make your components as easy to manage and update when you have complex state that are inside those components. Without any further ado, I am getting excited to start showing you all about why I love, and soon you will love, useReducer. Okay, so what I have here is a very basic example component, one that you may have built yourself in the past. These styles, as always, are the most lovely styles that any developer has ever made. But it is your tried and true login form, a piece of UI that is always deceptively more complex than I think it is, and one that is very deserving of useReducer, but that'll come a little bit later. We're going to build up to it before I actually show you why useReducer is great. So this is a basic UI thing. This is the component here. By default, it's not really doing anything yet because we actually haven't added any functionality. And because we're using hooks in this example, what we need to actually have for the first time is actually start hooking this just raw UI component up with just some useState. This is going to be my first attempt at adding state to this function component, and to do that I'm going to use useState, which is very similar to a class component's state mechanism as well. So I have two pieces of data that I want to hold here. One is username, set username. I'm going to say useState, and the default state is going to be an empty string. I'm going to copy and paste that to try to speed things up a little bit. I'm going to say set password. So now what I can do is have these be bound just like anything else that you do with a React component. So this is username. Let's save that. And then on change, we're going to say set username to be current target dot value. Cool. So now when I change this, it's being updated and I have it in local state. Let's do the same thing for password. So this is going to be password, and again this is going to be password as well. So now we're able to update our state, and now these input elements are controlled elements, something that you have probably had experience with if you've done React in the past. So now that I have my state under control, I can actually start building out the on submit button, because I actually have my username and password that I can actually submit things to. So for here, we're going to actually import, I actually have a pre-built little local helper utility to actually log in from utils. And this is a pretty basic function that I made that kind of emulates a API call. I've hard-coded in my username and password, so only if my username is Harry and my password is the top secret password of password will this actually resolve successfully, otherwise it will fail. So here what I can do is, rather than having it be a to-do, I can say await and log in and pass in the username and password. And I don't want to save the password, thank you Chrome. So now when I do this, I want to actually show whether it was successful or not. And the first way that I can do this is with a loading indicator to actually show that things are being loaded. So I'm at another piece of state saying is loading, set is loading, and the default state of this is going to be false because by default it's not loading. What I'm going to do is when the function is first called, I'm going to set is loading to true. And then when it's done, I'll set is loading to false. And then I can actually use this to then update my UI with it. So I'll go down here and I'll actually make this button be disabled if it's loading, so I don't actually let somebody do double requests. And then here I'm going to say, if it is loading, I'm going to say logging in, and if it's not, I'm just going to say log in. So now when I do this, logging in, and it never stops. And that's because I made a boo-boo, because if it fails, it's going to reject the promise. And with async await, I need to actually catch that if I can. Haha. So here I'm going to say I'm going to catch it. Do nothing for now. Save that. Now when I log in, logging in, log in. Now it's cool. However, if there is an error, I want to actually show the errors. Let's add that state as well. So the error is going to be also a piece of text. We're going to say error, set error. It's going to be blank by default. And then we have here, we're going to say set error is incorrect username or password. And that should be what we have for now. So now we log in. Sweet. We're not actually using that. Haha, I gotta use the error message. So we'll use the error message right above here to tell the user that we have a little issue right here. Error, pname, class name, error. So if there is an error, we'll actually show the error. So let's say log in. And there we have incorrect username and password. Now let's do some other username and password. If you log in, well, that should be hidden, right? So let's actually, like, when you first hit on submit, we'll say set error as an empty string to actually have our state update as we want it to be. Error. Now if I do it again, it goes away. Cool, so I'm updating that. But also, when there's an error, I also want to see when there's a success. So I'm going to say if there's a set success state, so is logged in, set is logged in. By default, it's false. Then if you go down here and you succeed, then we'll say true, which is sweet. Then if I'm logged in, what I want to do is, rather than show that form, I'm going to say is logged in. I'm going to say h1 hello username. Cool. Otherwise, we're going to just show the form, which is down there. Question mark, ternary. I gotta close the fragment. Sweet. So now when I do this, I got an error. I put in a new username, hit enter, it goes away. The password. And because I used the wrong action, I do this actually here. So now when I log in with my credentials of Harry and password, I get logged in, which is great. But I also want to have a log out button as well. So let's add this. So we're going to add a button that says log out. And then on click, we're going to say set state. Nope, not set state. We're going to say set is logged in to false. Cool. So now when I log in, I do password, I can log in, and I can log out. Oh, but now when I log back out, then I also have to then clear my username and password, because those shouldn't be persisted at all. That's definitely a mistake. So here what I could do is, when I say set is logged in, I could say set username to be blank, set password to be blank. Also, we don't want to actually show an error message if there's already an error message there. We don't want to have that be shown, so I can do that. So now I fixed that bug, but I'm like doing all this stuff in my onSubmit function that seems very unnecessary. Set password, log out, log again, cool. So that's kind of making the login plain using just raw use state. And it works and it's fine, but it's starting to grow real ugly, where I'm doing all this really imperative saying, okay, well on submit, I have to set is loading as true. I have to set error as this. And then when I log in, I have to also say set is logged in as true, set username. I'm dealing with all these state transitions when what I really need to worry about is the action that the user wants to take on my login component. All I care about is starting to sign in, trying to start logging in, and they have a successful login, they have a failure login, and they also have a sign out. So these are the kind of like 4 actions that a user is going to actually try to take with this login app. And right now, I'm not really thinking about the behaviors of my user. I'm thinking about the minutia of state changes in my application. This is a very subtle point, the one that I want to stress, because this is where my love for useReducer really kicks in, is that with useState, you think very much like if I have a thing that can either be A or B. I control what it can be. It can either be true, it can be false. But as a user, they're not really thinking about true or false. They're thinking about what they're trying to do. User's trying to log in. Cool. What does that mean in terms of the actual state value? They don't really care. You shouldn't really care, to be quite honest. When they have a successful login, they want to see what happens then. And there's kind of like this two-part process. There's how a user thinks and how they interact with their component, and what a component has to do underneath the hood to actually make that become a reality. And when you use useState, you're thinking just in that raw state world, the one where all you have to worry about is just state changing, not really worrying about what a user is trying to do with your application. And this is where useReducer really comes into play and really shines. So let's actually migrate this component from all these, there's, what is it, 2, 4, 5 useState usages into just one useReducer usage. Okay, are you ready to learn some more fun with useReducer? So we have all these state instances, and what actually first thing I need to do is input useReducer. useReducer takes 2 arguments and returns an array of 2 values. What it returns is your state, and it returns dispatch. If you've ever used Redux in the past, this should look familiar because its ideas directly inspired by Redux. And then useReducer takes 2 arguments. The first one is the actual reducer that actually tells useReducer how your state transition should happen. And the second one is the initial state. So for now, I'm going to have a login reducer. So I'm going to copy this, and I can actually define the login reducer outside the context of my component. And then this takes in 2 arguments. The first one is the state, the current state, and the second one is the passed in value when you're actually calling dispatch. And just an aside, the reason why it's called reducer is because it follows the same API as .reduce. Little fun trivia. For now, I'm just going to return state. And the second argument here is the initial state. And that's kind of what is the initial value set in useReducer. From here, the initial state, I'm actually going to steal all of this. So I'm going to go here. This is me using my VS Code Kung Fu to speed up this video a little bit. So is loading is going to be a Boolean, it's going to default to false, and is logged in is also going to default to false. Cool. So now what's kind of neat is that if I want to right now, so now let's keep building out the login reducer. Let's actually give myself a little bit more space. So login reducer, so the way that you actually now can update things with useReducer is you start thinking about the behaviors of the user rather than the state changes. So for example, what I first want to do is make it so that I can actually update the is loading state. Let's start there. And a common practice with reducers, one that I actually prefer, is switching on the actual action coming in. By convention, there's a type property on an action object, which is just a convention. You're not actually required to do that. And we're going to have an action of login. Then here what we're going to return is a copy of the current state. And we're going to say is loading true. So what I've done here right now is I made the first kind of action for our little component here, which means the action that a user is trying to take is to log in. And when a user logs in, the action, I can now then think of the minutiae state changes in my reducer, which actually let that become a reality. And the first one, in fact, just copied from here. It's doing set error as empty and show loader as true. So is loading is true. I'm going to say error is being reset to false. And right here, I actually have this one location where anytime, anywhere in this component that I want to log in, I can just have it be done here. So what I can actually do here is change this and make it be dispatch. This is an object, or I can actually have it be a string 2 if I want it to be, and have it be just login. I'm going to use this for now. Say action type is login. So now when you hit on submit, I'm dispatching the user behavior of logging in. And then decoupled from the actual component is what the actual state changes are from there. So let's actually keep moving that around. So this is login. We're going to say set is loading login true. We're going to actually have that be called success. So let's actually move that over here. So I'll have a new type, a case of success. We're going to return again, copying over the old object, because whatever you return from useReducer is the actual value that is, whatever you return from login_reducer from any part of the function is what state is updated to. So I want to actually copy over the existing state but just modify certain things. In this case, I want to say set logged in is true, which is going to be is logged in is true. I also have an error state from down there. Let's copy and paste this. Say error. And when there is an error, what do I want to do? I want to do four things. Oh, wow. I want to say, it's a dispatch error. So I want to set the error to this value. So error becomes that. I want to show loader as false. So show loader is false. Or actually, sorry, is loading. I named that very poorly. And then I want to zero out the username and password fields. So I go here and say username, password. Then also I need to have one other one, which is when I log out. I'm just going to have that be dispatch type of log out. And then up here, very much true here, I can go case success, and then log out is logged in becomes false. Cool. So already you can see things get kind of easy to read. We're on submit. I have three actions that you can take: log in, success, and error. And that's very much true of a user when they're taking an action on your component. So let's actually start using these values. I'm actually going to do a little bit more kung fu. I'm actually going to take all these actual values from state and then just destructure them off of the state object there. Oh, I forgot to actually update these here where we're actually updating the values. So actually what I can do here is kind of make a meta dispatch where actually I can do dispatch type is field. The field name in this case is username, and the value is our lovely little current target value, like that. So let's just copy and paste that to be in here. And now we can actually do, actually that should be password, is handle it. So right now, when I try to type, which I'm trying to do right now, nothing's happening because we actually haven't handled this action. So let's add field, return state. Then we're actually going to do some nice little ES6 interpolation of a property field and do that. So now when you type in, things are being updated. I log in. Look at that, incorrect username and password. If I do Harry password, don't tell anybody else my password. We logged in. And look, we log out. Things are looking good. Oh, but when I log out, this is still here. Oh, I guess I forgot to copy that over when I was doing this migration. So when I log out, what I can do here is actually just copy and paste this. And like right here, I'm not really thinking about where this is happening in the UI. I'm thinking about where it's happening in the reducer, where the action's happening. I could have this, I could dispatch this action anywhere in the entire component, and how it's handled will be consistent everywhere. And that's kind of like the real magic of useReducer, is that you don't actually think about state changes anymore. You think about user behaviors. You get to dispatch things that a user wants to do, then internal to useReducer handle these complex state changes, because this got messy real quick. For example, login forms can get much more complicated than this. You have a reset password flow that might want to change update internal to here. So you could have dispatch, update, reset password, potentially switch to a social login to be able to log in through there. You have a lot of complexity in there, whereas here you kind of just think about, in the component, you get to just think about action, these are behaviors. The what is how I like to say it. You get to think about what the user wants to do in your component with dispatch behaviors, and then how that happens is all centrally located in your reducer. And yes, the file itself might be a little bit longer, but I would strongly argue that this is much more maintainable than having multiple use state implications in your component. Right now, you know that when you log in, is loading is true and error is empty. It could even be that you can actually think about what the state should be and move things around here. If you wanted to say, case login, is login should never be true. If that's the case, if you wanted to do that, just be extra safe, you could just add this here. Now you've added a little bit more extra state management into the things there. So that's kind of the gist of it. Hopefully that made sense and you learned something from it, because I think it is one of the most incredible hooks in all of the hooks available. useReducer lets you really separate the what the user wants to do from how your component can get it done. Even better, you can actually have, if you wanted to, you could share reducers around, not that you'd really want to. And also, in many ways, useReducer is in no ways a replacement for Redux. Redux has a broad application level purview that has things built in to allow it to scale throughout your whole application. So to say that useReducer could replace Redux is not entirely fair to Redux. You can definitely do a lot internal to a component that you might otherwise have offloaded to Redux, but to say that you could replace all of Redux just with hooks, the useReducer hook is probably a little bit too eager at this current point in time. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. If you have played around with useReducer, I'd be curious to hear what you found as well, because I think it's a very exciting and powerful feature. This is just one example that I found it just really shine above all else. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about the video. If you're not already a subscriber, do please become a subscriber and join this family here of tutorials and videos and my face looking at you, hopefully giving you some joy and life and entertainment as you go about your day coding away into the dark nights. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you again next time.